Hello everyone, Godre here, and this is my money brief. So on today's money brief, I'm on the spot, and I have someone right here with me. Shegun, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So why am I on the spot today?
Well, today we will be discussing GDP rebasing because just like myself and numerous Nigerians, whenever we think about the NBS, we think about inflation rate. But then we've been, for the past 24 hours, there's been news across social media platforms that the NBS released a particular rebasing data. And just like myself and numerous Nigerians were even clueless about the term itself, rebasing. We don't even understand. So in clear terms, what is rebasing and why is it important for Nigeria's economy?
Okay, good question. So yesterday, the NBS had a press conference with, yesterday being January 9th, they had a press conference with media journalists, and they introduced a new rebasing of our inflation and GDP data. So rebasing in simple English is just changing the base for measuring something. So inflation by definition is a change in consumer price index. So I guess you're going to say, what is consumer price index? So consumer price index is a basket of several goods and services that we consume in Nigeria. So they're all put in a basket. So imagine food, imagine alcohol, imagine telecommunications, imagine transportation,
diverse sectors,
different things that, so somebody goes and they take a survey on each of the average prices of those things, and then they put them in a basket. Every single item has a weighting. So food can say in the current basket, food has a weighting of 51.8%, right? And so alcohol beverages has 1.1%. Housing, water, electricity, gas, and fuels, they're all grouped together. They have a weighting of 16.7%.
Okay.
So what that means is that if you go to check, you have a basket of food, tomato, orange, onions, and everything in that basket, and you check their prices this month, and let's say it is 1,000, right? And then the same month last year, it was 900. Then it means the index has shifted by 100. Okay, has shifted by 100.
Yeah.
And so let's say you now go to the same basket of alcohol, beverages, tobacco, and all that, and the index has shifted by, say, 50. Okay, so, and remember, the weighting is 51% for food. So 100 times 51%. Okay, so it gives you 51.8 in the weighting. Then for food, 50 times, say, for alcohol and beverages, 50 times 1%.
Okay.
That is 50. So you now add that together
comparison,
and then compare it as well with the previous month.
Okay.
And then the difference now becomes inflation rate. So pretty simple. And so that's why, that's exactly what rebasing means. And they also do that for GDP as well, because GDP is also based on the way the economy was at the previous period. Okay, so
and speaking of previous period, like during the course of the communications, that numbers were flying around yesterday, and one particular year stood out, the year 2019. According to some articles I saw, it says the year 2019 was used as the base year for the rebasing. Why is that the case, and not the following years from 2020 to 2022?
All right, good question. So the last time we had the rebasing, the base year the last time we had a rebasing for GDP was 2014, and the base year was 2010. And that was really the first time rebasing really came into mainstream lingua in Nigeria, at least in Nigerian economic space. And so the NBS yesterday said they used 2019 because that was the last time Nigeria had the semblance of a stable economy, and that wasn't very volatile.
Okay.
So remember, 2020 was COVID year. 2021 was also
recovery,
a bit of COVID year.
basically.
Even we had a bit of COVID year, and there was a lot of injection of stimulus. 2022 as well. So the economy, so those years, according to them, don't really reflect how the economy should have been in reality. So 2019, as far as they're concerned, was probably that year,
stable year.
So if you want to compare now to another year to see how well Nigeria has fared, it's better to use 2019 than 2020. So that's why they essentially chose 2019 as their base year.
Okay, so and how do you think rebasing affects the size and structure of an economy?
So rebasing affects the size and structure of an economy from a GDP standpoint because it captures the most recent structure of your economy and reflects the real size. So let's say 40 years ago, Shago, we didn't have GSM, did we?
No.
Good. So telecoms wasn't really a major space in the economy that, from a size point of view.
Yeah.
And so even 20 years ago, telecoms wasn't really that big compared to today. So now telecoms is a huge aspect of the economy. Also, 20 or 30 years ago, real estate, as much as real estate has always been a major feature in our economy, the value of real estate was not as big as it is today. Right? So if they are using a base year of 2010 for real estate, then it doesn't really reflect the more recent reality of changes in the size of real estate in Nigeria. And so that is why real estate is likely going to be like number 3 now in the new, when they come up with a new ranking for size of the economy, because things have really changed.
Okay, so speaking of years and even innovation, if technology evolving, are you saying possibly with how artificial intelligence is evolving, it might even become, shall I say, a sector that might be observed, GDP at some point?
Exactly. So even though you might want to put artificial intelligence on that telecoms or technology, so imagine that we now start to produce, we now start to create our own AI, centers and invest a lot in AI, and AI starts to take over a lot of things that we do from a productivity standpoint. Then that already can now be a huge aspect of the economy, but that's probably several years from now. But the larger point is that with rebasing, all you're trying to do is reflect the reality of your economy today. And so today we know that real estate and telecommunications are now a huge part of the economy. So in fact, according to them, they've now put real estate ahead of crude oil, crude petroleum, because it's a huge size of the economy.
Wouldn't have been the case 20 years ago.
Exactly. And so that exactly is what rebasing does for the economy. And when you do that, you also now resize the economy. So don't be surprised when they finish rebasing, Nigeria, which is currently 253 or so million in terms of the size, $253 trillion, or just slightly over $200 billion in GDP, might now be much larger than that. And the last time we did it in 2014, when they did the rebasing, we now got even larger than South Africa and became the largest economy in Africa. So if they do it now, who knows? Maybe we could go back to being the largest economy in Africa. But at the moment, we're not.
Right. So it seems this rebasing of it is some sort of, should I say, economic audit, basically, because it just looks through with the looking glass and just observes all of this sector. So on a global stage, how do you see rebasing? How do you see rebasing influencing Nigeria's economic policies? Even from an economic and political standpoint.
That's a brilliant question, Shagun. Wow, look at that. So there are a number of metrics that people tend to look at when you're talking rebasing. So imagine, let's give you a typical example. Say debt to GDP ratio. Okay, so the debt, that's the total debt that Nigeria is owing as a percentage of its GDP, often determines whether you're going to have new lenders give you money. So if your debt to GDP ratio is very high, then they can say, we can't lend you money because you're owing too much. But if they do this rebasing and our GDP is now larger, right, then the debt to GDP ratio will do what? Will be smaller.
Yeah.
So that gives you more room. Then even your debt service to GDP ratio, which people also look at, could also become smaller. And then another crucial one is tax to GDP ratio. And that doesn't really favor us too, because when you resize your GDP base and it results in a larger economy. Remember, our taxes are still small compared to GDP. Then tax to GDP ratio could even be much smaller, which can make government more aggressive to collect more taxes from all of us.
Influencing the policies.
Exactly. So that just influences, for example, fiscal policy from that standpoint. Then if you do rebasing for inflation and all of a sudden inflation numbers maybe go a bit lower or go higher, then that could also influence CBN monetary policies and how they combat inflation. Because now they have a better idea of what inflation numbers is because the numbers now reflect reality.
Rebasing as a whole sounds very, very beneficial to every economy. And if it's left to me, I would say it's something that should even be done before the year even runs out, like maybe twice a year, if that is possible. So based off that, how often do you think, the activity of rebasing should take place?
I think maybe we'll just rely on IMF recommendations, right? Because IMF recommends that you rebase 5 to 10 years, every 5 to 10 years. So that year, every 1 year, will really work. Now, not that it doesn't make sense, it's just that it takes a lot to want to do that rebasing. So you also need time for your economy to come and germinate and all that. So IMF recommends 5 to 10 years. I think ours even take quite long, and people wonder why rebasing as often as should be.
It's taking Nigeria like 14 years.
Exactly, which is not good because you really need that number because it helps with national planning, like you said. Why do you need it? So it helps with planning, it helps with policy making, not just for government, even for businesses too. When businesses are trying to do a 5-year projection, 10-year projection, you need to be working with the right data.
Based off this conversation, seems like the year 2019, when they say, may we not have a better yesterday or know of a better yesterday, seems like the year 2019 was the most stable time in our economy.
At least in the last 8 to 10 years, correct. Wow.
In that way, that's been very informative, insightful, and beneficial. Thank you so much.
So not on the spot again?
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, guys, that's Money Brief for today. Until we do this again next time, do have a profitable week ahead. Bye.